Hello everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm a programmer and an artist, and this is part 3 of my series of videos on modeling a canon, or modeling my process for modeling game assets in general, which in this case happens to be a canon. The previous episode, I modeled the carriage for the gun, which went pretty well, but it dragged on a lot longer than I had hoped. The real time I spent on it was like an hour and 15 minutes modeling, which I edited down to like 40 minutes, I think. And the way I did that was by speeding a lot of the video up to double the speed, which I was able to do because about half of the time I wasn't saying anything, I was just modeling. However, that ended up, the result of that was a video that kind of plays really fast. But ironically, it's kind of slow if you just want an overview, but it's too fast if you were trying to like follow it and do the same thing, which I didn't really intend for it to be something that you followed exactly, like a step-by-step tutorial. It was more, I wanted to show my process from beginning to end of modeling an asset. But maybe I'm going into too much detail for that, but not enough for it to be an actual tutorial. I don't know. I wasn't particularly happy with how that video came out. It felt like it was fast and slow at the same time. It was too fast and too slow at the same time. So anyway, I think what I'm going to try to do this time is hopefully do a little bit better explanation of what the steps or the process I'm doing is, but maybe not show like me moving every single vertex. So I don't know, I'll experiment with that, I guess, in this episode and see how it works. I guess let's go ahead and start by modeling the axle, because I think it should actually be pretty quick to make. My plan for how I'm going to model it is I'm going to add a cube that's this size. I'm just going to ignore some of these details. I'll add some, make some bands that are the same size as that cube and use solidify to make the metal strips. And then this will be a cylinder that's just shaped in that size. And then if I do anything differently, I will comment on it after I model it. All right, I finished modeling the axle here. So what we will do now is select all of this and move it to a new collection called axle. And then I'll add a cube or anything and add a collection to object. And we want the axle, and the origin can be this. Then we can bring that over here, rotate it 90 degrees. And then we want to rotate it 90 degrees this way so that the angled part faces up, because I believe that's correct. We'll snap it to this so that it's centered. I guess it should be that big, according to the drawing. Let's try to line that up. And then we can do a quick edit to this. All right, so that just took a little bit of tweaking of the shapes to make everything fit together correctly. And now we have the axle done. I did end up doing it basically how I thought I would. It was just adding a cube, making the little bands, and then adding a cylinder and resizing it for that part. For the wheel, it's going to be slightly more complicated. The first thing I'll make is the central axle piece, or the central ring. And I will model that using a spin modifier. So I've just modeled the profile, then we'll add the screw modifier on the x-axis and calculate the normals. To model these metal rings, I've made a copy of the wooden piece, and I've put a solidify modifier on it. Then I'll just add some loop cuts to match where the rings are, like so. And then I will select those face loops, invert the selection, and delete faces. All right, next I'm going to model the spokes of the wheel. And to do that, they're just a cylinder, slightly elongated it looks like, and we can see that they angle outwards. So I'll have to set up, I'm probably going to just make a copy of a linked duplicate of the object, and then I'll just place one of the duplicates on this view of the wheel and the other one over here. This one we can get that outward angle correct, and then this one we can distribute all of the spokes with an array modifier. All right, with this single spoke modeled, the only other thing I did was just to make sure that the end was deleted because I don't need it. And then we can give this the wood material. And let's scale the UVs down a little bit, which will make the texture larger on the object. Then as far as modeling the pattern here, we just need to rotate it on an array. So we'll add an array one dimensional. We don't need it to be instances. I think there's 12 of these. We want no offset, but we want to rotate on Z by 360 divided by 12, 30 degrees. We will just snap this to the wheel here. We need to rotate it 90 degrees on Y, like so. And then we can see that these line up just behind that metal band. So we can slide it back to there. All right, next I'm going to model this wooden ring of the wheel, and we can see that it's made up of 6 circle segments. So the way I'm going to model it is I'll add a circle and add a circle with a number of points that's divisible by 6, and then I'll delete 5 6 of it, and then I will just make it a rectangular profile essentially, and then use an array one-dimensional modifier with a rotation on it to make the 6 segments. All right, now that I have that modeled, I'm actually going to make a copy of it, and we will snap it to the wheel here. And we want to rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees. Now it looks like this is rotated weird, so I'm going to clear the rotation on that and rotate it negative 90 degrees on y, and we'll line it up again. We can see that this should actually be a little bit wider, so we will select these faces here and make that the right thickness. All right, I finished placing the outer wooden ring of the wheel. I had to make it slightly thicker so that it matched the reference, but other than that, it was just a matter of positioning it so that it lined up with the spokes. Next, I'm going to take the original wheel that we had before, and I'm going to reuse it to make this outer metal ring, which is just going to involve resizing this so that it's slightly larger radius but thinner, and then changing the material on it to the metal material. All right, now that I've positioned the metal ring around the outside of the wheel with the segments offset 30 degrees from the wooden segments, so the seam on the wooden segments here, the seam on the metal segments are here. All that's left to do is I want to put these detail pieces on. So there's like these metal clamps that hold the wheel segments, the wooden segments together. And then it looks like there's some nails or knobs on the wheels as well. So we'll model both of those using simple shapes and then the array one-dimensional with a rotation on it. All right, now that I've added all the little spheres around the tread of the wheel, I'm going to add the little brackets that clamp these wooden pieces together. And the way I'm planning to do that is to make a copy of this wooden part of the wheel and change it to metal and change its position so that it overlaps the seam. All right, so in the end we end up with something like this, which is mostly the low poly version of this. You can tell the shading all looks really bad right now because these normals are interpolated, but that will all be fixed later by adding a bevel before baking, which will make everything look nice and smooth. So finally, to add this to the model, we can select all of it and move it to a new collection called Wheel. We can go ahead and pull it up a little bit. And then we can add a cube or anything. And we want to add a collection to object node. We want to do the wheel collection. I guess I already had a wheel collection, so we'll do the wheel 1 collection. And we want this object as the origin. Then we can snap that to this, rotate it 90 degrees, pull it out. It looks like it's slightly too big, so we will scale it down till the size matches. Place it right here. add a mirror on the y-axis with the cannon as the reference, with the carriage piece. And then let's just make sure this lines up. So we'll go into wireframe mode and check. And it looks like we could pull the wheel up a little bit. So that's funny. From this view, it looks too small. Maybe we'll split the difference. Pull it in a little bit. The other thing is, I believe this should be, should rotate this like this. There we go. And then it looked like we needed to extend this in a little bit more. All right, and then one final thing we could do before we're done is we could just add a cube, resize this so that it is on the x-axis 7.5 feet long. And then if we place that right here, we'll use this as a gauge to resize the barrel. So let's come into edit mode here, select the front part of the barrel, and we're going to pull it out till it lines up with the cube. And then I'm going to select the back half of the barrel and pull it back until it lines up with the cube. And then let's see if we want to adjust any of this. Slide all of this forward a little bit. Pull this back a tiny bit. All right, so I think that about does it for the modeling process. I don't think there's much else I want to add as far as like actual details of this. Except I might, when we do the high poly, put some detail piece on this. That's the only thing I can think of. I'm not planning to model any of the tools right now, although, I guess we should probably model like a wedge to go here. I may just do that before the next episode. The next episode, I think I wanted to talk about preparing the high and low poly models for baking, which will be taking what we've built so far. We're going to make a copy of it and remove parts of it for the low poly. And then on the original, we will add a bunch more modifiers and details and stuff. So that's going to be the next part. Hopefully the way I recorded it and edited this was an improvement over the previous one. I guess if you have any thoughts on that, I'd be interested to know what you think. Like I said, it felt like it was too in-depth to be a good overview as far as like the pacing of it went, because it was kind of slow for that, but it felt way too fast to follow along as a tutorial, which wasn't really what I wanted it to be anyway. So we'll see if this works a little bit better. Anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Thanks for watching.